All right, today's episode is a little bit different. You've heard me talk a lot about Sked Social, the content, the community, the chaos of social media managers trying to hold it all together. But today we're going under the hood. I'm joined by Rich Henson, product manager at Sked Social, or as most of us call him internally, the guy who knows where all the bodies are buried. Rich has been here since 2020, started in customer success, touched pricing, approvals, go-to-market, AI, etc., etc. But now he's leading one of the biggest product shifts we've made in years. Because here's the reality. You're not running out of ideas. Ideas are infinite now. AI can give you 130 seconds. Save posts are everywhere. Slack threads, notes apps, screenshots, voice memos. But execution, alignment, choosing the right idea and actually getting it live, that's where things fall apart. And that's why we've been building something new. In this episode, Rich breaks down how real customer feedback turns into product, why screenshots are the enemy, why Google Sheets become the accidental idea hub for social teams, and how Sked Ideas is designed to give your creative process a proper home before you hit schedule. This one's for social media managers, agency owners, product people, or anyone juggling ideas and trying not to burn out. Let's get into it. Rich Henson on the Scene podcast finally. I didn't know how to introduce you, mate, because you do a lot of different things here at Sked. What is it that you actually do? What is the title?
My job title in my email signature is product manager, but it generally sits a bit broader than that and take on, like, you will call it like special projects where you tend to own a bunch of stuff that maybe doesn't have owners within the org, or trying to solve problems that perhaps they need someone who understands how different things might fit together from different components, and it's not an engineering problem. So you're not trying to code your way out of something, but you are trying to figure something out about how two pieces that need to fit together. How do we fit together? How do we fit them together to solve a specific problem or get a specific output? So, so what do I do is, like, good question. A lot of the stuff day to day is like typical, like, product manager stuff. So there's user research, trying to work out what people really want when they ask you for things, prioritization of that stuff, lots of boring bug fixes, writing up those documents, writing up help docs, emails, making cool tools for the team to do their stuff a little bit better. Basically anything that's customer facing at one point was pretty much all in my wheelhouse, from customer success and go to market. So yeah, a bit of everything is probably a bit of an understatement.
I love that, man.
Not depth, apparently. Breadth. We're going for breadth.
Yeah, 100%, man. I remember when I first started, the team just said, you got any issues or any problems, speak to Rich, because he knows everything about everything. And I'm just keen to really unpack, like, how it all started for you. Like, you've been at Sked now are you the longest serving employee?
Rowena will be the longest, and Noni is a little bit longer than me. But close to. I joined in September of 2020, so kind of, we'll call it mid-pandemic. Came on 1 or 2 days a week, just doing some success work for Hugh because he needed some extra backfill because Naomi had just come back from mat leave, so she just had Teddy. Yeah. And basically needed someone in APAC / someone to handle some of the onboarding, do it more rewriting stuff of those emails and, I guess, systems, as we were kind of rapidly acquiring, like, customers through, but very quickly, because COVID was just obviously quite a ramp up as people were like, well, we're going to do more social. Went from a couple of days to more than a couple of days, and then a couple of days became full time, I think, end of 2021. And so we'll call it like 5 years, 5 and a bit. Long enough to have been here to know.
And what was your background before all of this? Were you doing random stuff like you are now, or was it just more focused? And yeah, like, what was your career journey?
Before this, I was a general manager of a pro audio hire business. So I joined a DJ lighting kind of store back in I'm going to say 2009. So we're talking lifetimes ago. We sold predominantly PA gear and DJ gear, and we're kind of like the height of, we'll call it like DJ culture before social media, because totally different game. I was brought in to run the hire business, which was just this tiny little kind of 2 racks of equipment at the back with pretty much nothing in it. And we just took that and ran with it. I think over a couple of years, we kind of turned that into the main business. We closed the retail store eventually because it didn't make any sense. Took over as general manager in about 2016, I want to say, as the hire business. We'd moved. We'd gone from having, I don't know, like 5 CDJs to probably having 200 speakers just in Melbourne and 50 CDJs, like 100x inventory turnover. And just turned into a really slick kind of retail hire operation. So if you were running your own event, having your own party, you've got some people around at your house, maybe an engagement, maybe just want to annoy the neighbors, tons of like iPod system, tons of lighting systems just to do cool stuff if you're going to a venue and you want extra things. And so what we really pioneered was, how do we find cool products in China? How do we make sure they're suitable for what we want to do? Can they fit in a box in a tub and be stackable? Are they easily maintainable? Are they repeatable? So how do we kind of take a product in some capacity and make sure that the handling time, the reliability, the cost of ownership for us is low, and we can just turn this thing in and out and in and out, in and out, in and out as many times in a season as possible. And that was my background. So we turned it from kind of nothing into something. Being a general manager is definitely, in a smallish org, is definitely a generalist kind of role. You sit into like a lot of finance stuff. You're trying to navigate financials and the ATO and the bookkeeper and receipts and HR and hiring and all of those lovely things that fit together, which is always fun when you're in a small organization, for anyone who's ever spent time in HR. And then the whole thing came crashing down in like March 2020. I was on long service leave. I was 2 weeks into my long service leave. I was supposed to be off from the start of February, mid-Feb, through till the end of April or mid-April. And I was 2 weeks in, and I was like, this COVID thing's bad, and spoke to my director. And he was like, yeah, we'll talk about it over the weekend, and see what happens on Monday. By the time Monday rolled around, he's like, do you want to come in, mate? Let's have a talk. And that was it. It was over. So, what's that, like 14 years or something? No, 11 years. 11 years over on a weekend. That was it. It was like, I guess I'm taking redundancy.
And how does something like that, when that happens, so unexpectedly, you're meant to be on this break, how do you like mentally deal with that and push on and do other things? Was it hard for you, or was it like, all right, I need to like move and get things happening?
Yeah, really great question. When you kind of add in the COVID stuff as well, and in Melbourne there were kind of lockdowns for an extended period of time, it was not a particularly great time. For many people, it certainly wasn't great for me. I still had like a little side business that I was running, which was like a confetti store online, which is a whole other thing. And so I kind of just chipped away at that. And because I had that thing, I got some of the income support. Even though it wasn't really turning over any money, I wasn't really forced to go do something pretty quickly. I had the luxury of time, had the luxury of sitting in my house and playing lots of Final Fantasy VII Remake, and kind of took my time around getting other stuff. I did a bit of contracting work for a coffee roaster here in Melbourne, another ready-to-drink coffee company, doing some like digital marketing-y kind of stuff, e-com stuff. You would just say like websites, things, SEO, and end up chatting to Hugh, and then kind of end up doing one day. So I was kind of filling in my time with a bunch of different things, and then just waiting for the kind of right opportunity to present itself. We're still talking to people, but I kind of was looking in the success space, even though I didn't have a success manager background. It was something that I thought I'd be reasonably good at, or at least, you think you might be okay at. And it turns out you can be okay at it, basically.
And what about like, doing the GM role and being a bit of a generalist? Was that the thing inside you there where it was like, I want to be a really well-rounded person and sort of understand all these different things and how they all work and come together? Like, was that a thing in your mind where it's like, all right, this is the type of thing that I kind of want to do?
Not consciously. Because that role just kind of continued to grow and evolve. And then I just kind of ended up with it. And there is a ton of, you just kind of figure it out. And sometimes you don't need to know everything, or you definitely don't know everything. And that's why you get people who are smarter than you to sit in those positions and more specialized. Early on, one of the first things that, I can't remember who said it, but was like, get a bookkeeper. Don't try and do any stuff yourself. Get someone who's just 1 day a week, and they come in and they can ask you all the questions, and they can do all the stuff, because let them figure all that stuff out. You don't learn that. Learn how to read the report, learn what they're asking, but never try and do this stuff yourself. And so I've tried to, at least, for other things that I've run or other things I've been involved in, is just get people who are smarter than you and more specialized to do those things, know enough so you can talk their language and understand when they ask you questions, and what you have to do to help them do their job, but never try and do it yourself. So, consciously never really tried to kind of learn a little about a lot. But I think it's definitely in my nature to go for like breadth over depth and understanding how things kind of fit together, which I think lends itself pretty well to being early on a success manager at Sked, because you are talking to people who are in social media, marketing, PR. They're all in kind of e-commerce. They're all in this like social media space, but they all have different angles on stuff. And so understanding how all their parts fit together, especially when they're with their goals of social and what they're trying to do at Sked, you can talk their language. You can talk the right language and understand their challenges, because they're usually coming to us for a particular reason, or it's like, hey, we want to solve X, Y, and Z, or we've got this thing with approvals. Like, we really want to solve this because it takes heaps of time. So, I think having been in a small headcount business of like, I think about 30 people across 3 locations, it's hard. Dealing with people is hard. Getting people to do their jobs is hard. And that's not even having clients.
Yep. And what do you think the skill sets that really held you through all this? Like, there might be someone listening who might be just starting off. What do you think are some like underrated skill sets or things that you like intentionally thought about that really helped you along the way?
I think if we were to pin down on like the success manager side, just let people talk and let them try and articulate the reason that they've come to you. Because if you don't understand the challenge that they're trying to solve, and you have to fall in love with the problem, not the solution, like really let them articulate what's been the catalyst, what's been the series of events that led them to the phone call, to the sales demo, to the onboarding. Because that's really, as a success manager, that's your North Star of what's the number one thing we need to solve with this thing to be considered a success for implementation. I would say that a large number of people, especially back when I was a CS, approvals is one of the things that people have really struggled with overall. And it's not because approvals is an unknown, it's because wrangling the approver is one of the hardest things that social media managers tend to struggle with. And it's because they're just not invested in the process. They're not as invested in the process as you are. And so that was always one of the ones that came up. It's like, we just really want to smooth over approvals because it takes up too much time. It's causing us more chaos and we have to shift stuff. We get blamed when something doesn't publish, even though they didn't approve it. It's an interesting paradox that if I send something to you for approval and you don't approve it in time, that's my fault that it didn't go out. And you hear that all the time. So, for people if you are looking at something in that kind of customer success or onboarding thing, the best thing you can do is just shut up and listen and really fall in love with the problem. Let them describe why they're there. What's going to be the main thing, because otherwise you're just not going to get it.
I love that. I've been lucky enough to be on calls with you when you are speaking with customers, and it's like watching a master at work, mate. You leave space, and I think like the way you take the feedback and turn it into new things and new features and stuff, I think is really cool. Like, can you explain the process around that? Like, you're getting this feedback, you're talking to customers, then it's about building the solution. Like, how do you go about taking all that information and making sure you're building something right?
Yeah. How do you kind of filter out that interesting requests and like good ideas from stuff that's really worth pursuing? Because everyone that you talk to has what I would consider good ideas. And forgive anybody who's listening to this podcast who's ever told me ideas and then I've promptly done nothing with them. All ideas are good. Unfortunately, good doesn't always make the cut for stuff. It really has to be packaged up in a way that solves something interesting. And in a lot of cases, it's like, hey, what if you did this thing? And then you start pulling on some of the threads of like what your actual objective is, and it's something else. But it's like, hey, can you add a button to this thing or add a filter? And it's like, okay, why do you want that? So you start pulling on threads. But I think one of the ones I think I had a lot of success with early on when we were trying to building approvals, the first thing of approvals that we rebuilt back in 2022, some of the feedback that kind of drove that overhaul was people describing their workflows. And it was like, hey, yeah, so I've got this thing, and you used to go into it, and it was just a post, and you used to say yes or no, and if you say no, you can leave feedback. But once you said yes or no to something, it was gone. So there wasn't a place that a reviewer could go back to see the things that were coming up. And there wasn't a place to see it on a calendar, and there wasn't a grid preview. And so some of the feedback was like, yeah, I do this and send them this, and then I go into Sked and I screenshot the planner and I text them the screenshot of the planner link of just the planner. And you start going, where else are you using screenshots on Sked? Where do you go around? Where do you take screenshots and send them this stuff? I would objectively say that screenshots are probably the worst fucking way of doing anything that you could ever do. Like, if you're doing screenshots, then we've not done our job properly, or whatever you're using doesn't support the way that you want to use it. No one is out here going, I'm going to send screenshots because that's objectively the best way to do it. And so that drove a lot of the feedback on the planner stuff. And you just kind of, every now and again, you get a little kind of light bulb moment of, oh, I understand why, I understand this. I understand where the challenge is here. And eventually, more of these threads start coming together. And then you've got then you've got an idea. And then you can kind of go, maybe we could prototype this. What does it look like? You just get more feedback and more feedback until until you have a concept and you have, at least part of a problem defined, part of what we're trying to solve, like lockdown. And for approvals, it was people don't have a place they can go back to see upcoming posts, which generates more emails from clients saying, hey, I forgot what we had coming up. What's coming up this week, even though they approved it the week before. They can't see a calendar, so they can't see how things are laid out, not just in a like a schedule, like a list, but like how it's spaced over the month. What's the cadence and the frequency of that delivery, and how's it dropped around weekends and stuff? So visually, like the visual layout, the grid preview, obvious one. People back 22, 23, aesthetic grids were much more desirable. People really wanted to know, what is my grid going to look like, versus now a lot less. It's like, will it look fine? That kind of stuff. They want to see their previous feedback. And so, that was, I think, one of the first projects that I worked on where overwhelmingly landed incredibly well, because we knew the challenges that people were really having with it. And I was like, no more screenshots. We're not doing that here.
And that's the thing I love about what we do, is like witnessing firsthand. It's like, yes, we roll out this prototype. We have, customers playing in there and just giving us their feedback and being able to iterate, and then just, all right, yeah, we've got that feedback. And it's like stuff in real time. And how do you think about like taking that feedback and making new features and new things from that, versus giving them something new, or assuming that something like a new idea could maybe work as well? And maybe if you combine the two, or how do you think about that?
Yeah. In some ways it's easier to build new stuff than it is to upgrade old stuff for engineering reasons. Depends broadly on what it is. There's also some kind of commercial considerations with new, which is new is big and shiny, and it's a new kind of thing on the website. It's a launch. It's something that's a differentiator. Whereas fixing or maintaining or updating old stuff is kind of the opposite of that. Especially if it's not broken. If it's just doing its thing and it's fine, doing new versions of those isn't very glorious, isn't very, no one looks at it and goes, oh, cool, you've updated the thing, but it takes the same amount of work. I think that's the challenge, is that if you want to take like Inbox, for example, which we've got some upcoming work on, it's either like a visual update to Inbox and some new tools, or we could build an entire new thing of something else. We have to pick and choose those things pretty carefully. In terms of selecting them, sometimes you just have to go with a bit of a vibe and just go with a gut feel and just go, this is the direction that we're going in for, Q1, Q2 for this year with ideas, which I'm sure we're going to talk about in a sec. And other times you just have to go with data and go, well, more people are using this thing. More people are asking for X, Y, Z for updates that we've already got. And you kind of have to make a decision because you probably can't do both. Not at the same time.
I love that. And we are excited about rolling out this idea planner too, because what it's going to enable people is like the full creative process. So, and I think like some of the feedback I've got early on is like, it's going to save a lot of like agencies and multi-location businesses time when people can see like the idea of where they want to take things, and it can easily be yes or no, and you can kind of get that feedback early. I'm sure you're excited about that as well. Hey.
Yeah, it's, I'm not sure when this one will go out. So whether it'll be out yet, but I assume probably will.
It'll be out.
Yeah. So ideas started as a concept probably 2022, 2023, maybe the start. And the feedback that kind of drove it was, there's actually one specific conversation I can recall where I was like, hey, it was very early on in the CSM days, and people were like, hey, how's Sked going for you? You're using this, using that, really not a very complex conversation. And one of the responses was, yeah, I love Sked. I log on once a month and I schedule all my stuff and I log off, and it's amazing. And then part of the customer facing voice says, oh, that's great. That's awesome that you're finding it to be useful. And then your kind of CS and product guy voice goes, oh crap, that's terrible. Like that you're finding value in it once a month or once every 2 weeks. Like it's doing its task, but it's not doing any more than just sending stuff to the internet. And so you start probing on those things, and it's like, hey, well, before you get into Sked, where do you do your planning? And like, where does, you're obviously putting full posts that are already into Sked. What happens before that? And everyone goes, Google Sheets or Asana or Trello or another tool or Monday or whatever. But like overwhelmingly Google Sheets was the most popular answer on a number of surveys that we did on it. And I think to kind of come full circle on screenshots, no one's using Google Sheets because they think it's the best tool to do planning. It's just because it's collaborative, it's free. You don't have to explain to anyone how to use Google Sheets. You can just jump in there and use stuff. Like it's easy and it's cheap. But then you've got to pay the cut and paste tax and get the stuff across into Sked and try and get approvals in there. And so you've kind of saved a bit of time, but you've just end up with a more fractured system. But part of the problem was that we didn't support like a playground to experiment with ideas, to put things in a list and just get early feedback and just, kind of not quite mood board, but throw some ideas up there, hey, it's a bit more disposable. It's a bit more playground. It's a bit more a place to go workshop ideas. And I think all of those names were things that we threw around for early kind of versioning of different concepts. And it became really clear by 23, 24 that it was like, we need to open up a system in Sked that really facilitates that earlier planning piece. So we're not just people coming in, cutting and pasting all their stuff in and just hitting schedule, then logging off. Like we want them to work as a team to say yes to no to stuff earlier for reasons that I think is probably even more important these days. I'm sure we'll get to it. We want people to, be able to save to the ideas thing from their phone, so they're not kind of have this messy notes thing or screenshots or, 10 different WhatsApp conversations and a text message and a Slack channel, really having a home for things to go and live, and be the kind of pre-Sked. And then I finally convinced Seb that we should build it. And he was like, I think we should. And then we built it.
I love that. And it's not just like powered by AI stuff. It's more than that. It feels like it's more customized and personal to the people who are using it. And it's meant to make it easier, not harder. Like you were saying, everyone's got like good ideas. It's about sort of how do you prioritize them and what will actually work and things like that. So I think that's the really cool part. And then expanding to mobile and focusing on that and making sure that, because we live in a world now where people are on the go as well. Hey, and social media managers are busy people. They could be managing 15, 20 accounts. And it's like, How do you stay on top of that? How do you, if you're sending screenshots and you're doing all these other things, it definitely adds up and probably leads to a lot of burnout in people in that role. Hey,
1,000%. The burnout and kind of, so the psychological and cognitive load of just being always on as a social media manager is unreal. I couldn't do it. I admire people who have been in it for years and have managed to kind of navigate their way through that, because I can't compartmentalize my time anywhere near well enough. I think one of the challenges that people are probably going to see this year is that ideas are kind of free and infinite. And you've heard me discuss this before. I remember like when I first started, 6-7 years ago, a lot of the social media marketer kind of lead magnet templates for either small agencies or solopreneurs, were like, buy my course, it's $10 or whatever, or it's $100 and you get the next 30 days of content. The whole thing's just a workshop on write yourself some content pillars and, how to use a spreadsheet to map out 30 days, whatever else. Because people needed that kind of guide. Just social media was still new for a lot of people. It might be their first foray into running a professional account if they've got an actual business that needed a serious take on it. And it's not just, hand Instagram to the new girl. And that happens. It definitely did happen. And so you need someone with a bit of strategy. And so people are trying to work out what's my first Instagram strategy and how do I do this? How do I work with content pillars? And that stuff is now infinite and disposable. Like if you want 100 ideas in the next 5 minutes, we can just jump into Gemini or ChatGPT, give it some stuff, and it will just give us, if you want 1,000 ideas, we can have 1,000 ideas. Are they 1,000 good ideas? No, it's not 1,000 good ideas, but we've got some volume. I think where I see some of the balance of the year going is, how do we let people generate stuff that's at least better straight off the bat, and then allow them to filter through into things and customize and pick out the ones that they think are a good fit and then build for them. Because what I kind of see in the space with idea generation is probably not useful beyond noise for a lot of stuff.
I love that. And you're someone who's deep in the AI stuff. Like you like building agents and really understanding how that all works. How do you see AI sort of playing its role in the future, just in general?
Terrifying. When you think it's moving quick, it only moves faster. Captivate, which was our first AI kind of GPT thing, which was in Sked, some light caption generation, we kind of crowbarred in over a weekend or two back at the start of 2023. It was like ChatGPT 3.5 launch. They had a couple of APIs. We just like slammed this thing in and just to see if it would work and it would stick. And it's still there. It's still doing stuff. We've done other things since. It's going to be put out to pasture in the next couple of weeks as ideas lands. But at the time, I remember talking to a lot of people that started that year on the customer success quarterly business reviews, probably 20, 30, 40 people across a quarter, and was just trying to get a good feel on how people felt about ChatGPT, because that was really the only one at the time. Bard /Gemini wasn't really used. I overwhelmingly, it was like, yeah, I can kind of like, oh, I can put some stuff into it and it does some okay things. And I think we did a quantitative survey as well. And it was like half the people were like, yeah, I might use it for a bit of stuff. Half the people were like, don't use it. We did the same survey about 8 months later. No one said they didn't use it. Not a single person came back and said we don't use it. And 60% said they used it weekly. And so the shift in just 7 or 8 months from our customer base went from 0 to 100. That was years ago. It's only getting faster. I don't know what that means, to be honest. There's more of it. It gets better. It does better generation. Costs more probably. I don't have a crystal ball, but I don't see it slowing down. I only see it more rapidly accelerating.
Yeah, I think the same thing too, man. I remember back in the day, the biggest thing back then was like, remember the dancing elves? You'd Photoshop your head on that dancing elf and you'd be like, oh, how crazy is this? And even a few years ago, like you'd try and generate videos and stuff using AI and it was just way off where it just felt, yeah. But nowadays,
it's like smooth eating spaghetti kind of like, yeah.
Yeah, and these days it's like, all right, wow, there's people like producing movies and TV shows and stuff just using all these things, and it's like, okay, where is kind of the world going to go? But I think you have to be a bit of an optimist as well, hey, where it's like there is so many good things that it can be used for and help you with. So if anything, it should make smart people even smarter. And I think like jobs and stuff will definitely change. I don't think everything will be replaced entirely, but I think there'll be different things that you'll have to learn and understand. It's like when the computer first came out and we got the internet, it was like, gee, I remember the first like Amazon website, it was like a bookshop, wasn't it? It just looked ugly as, and it's like, okay, I never thought TikTok would be around back then, like our brains kind of can't really comprehend it, hey, where it's like, who really knows where it's going to go? But yeah, it is interesting to see how people are using it these days.
Anything and everything, and it will only get better at it and faster. And unfortunately, it's probably people who are probably similar to me in that kind of generalist bucket where you know just enough to be dangerous and how things fit together. A lot of social media managers I would probably put into the generalist bucket, especially if you're not a dedicated creative who's out there taking photos and videos, to be perfectly honest. You're a part marketer, part ecom guy, part, you wear many hats as a social media marketer or social media professional. It decreases the skill gap between somebody who knows a little about a lot, and has to do a bunch of things, and somebody who is more of a specialist in that kind of thing. Doesn't make you as good, but if you need to do some data analytics on something, you can get a pretty good result within an hour or two, versus 2 years ago, you just could not have done that. So the kind of skill gap between like a specialist and someone who's a really good generalist and knows how to solve a problem, or knows how to define the problem, is going to keep disappearing very, very quickly. It's I don't know where it goes from here in terms of the specifics, but image models continue to get better, video models continue to get better. That's not going to stop.
Yeah. And I think it's like how you interpret stuff. Like I love the fact that you can, put a bunch of documents in and then just get like common themes and patterns, or, like getting really good at prompting. Like, what do you actually want to get out of this sort of stuff? Where back in the day, it'd take you like a week to read through a bunch of stuff. And it's like, if you know how to ask the right questions, you can kind of get some good results and speed it up. But it is interesting. I don't think like when you're seeing robots walking the street and stuff, I think like, I don't know about that. Just quite yet. But like,
you met people though. People have kicked them. Like there's no way these things are going to walk around. Like people are too mean. Like
exactly. Wasn't Elon and stuff talking about like AI surgeons and stuff being like way more accurate than human surgeons or something like that? And that's only like a year or two away. It's like, okay, I don't know if I'll be comfortable going into the operating theater with a robot, but who really knows? Hey,
yeah, just fix me. Yeah, I mean, from a purely like Sked level, I mean, one of the things that we're pretty mindful of when we do product design and where AI lives in the product is not. We want to make sure that there's headroom for social media professionals' expertise, and we're not doing things that takes that seat, even if we could. It's like, could we stick image generation, image editing, and AI image editing, and use one of these fancy image editing models just to go, hey, generate me 4 different variants of this ecom shot, and rotate around, and dynamically change backgrounds. So some of the models are incredibly good at that, but even better than Nano Banana Pro. But does that kind of take the seat of somebody who's a photographer? Yeah, probably. Will that eventually happen to everybody at some point? I don't know. But especially with writing captions and idea generation, it's like we want it to be an assistant so you can kind of do better work and apply your own expertise in new and interesting ways, and reduce some of the cognitive load of just busy work or in crap, so that you're not just shuffling papers, cutting and paste, paying the cut and paste tax, moving crap around, and you can actually work on meaningful things that generate good, like you could take an idea and then go extrapolate that out and make it good for your client because you know their target market and their audience and how you position it and the language that you would really want to use when you go and launch that campaign. And so that's the kind of space that we're trying to make instead of just, I've seen a few other products recently that have kind of gone the opposite path, and they've got a chat GPT connector and you type the thing in there and it fills up your calendar, right, with posts. Well, if you're a social media manager, what's your fucking job? Like,
Yep. Yeah, that's the thing. The best ones are using their brains still, and it has to, it's coming from, it's just, AI is just used as a tool to help with the things that you're already thinking of. And the guests that we've had on the podcast so far, I think the common theme there is that they're all still using their own strategy and brain with what they're building, and just using this as kind of like a tool to just really help them, like you were saying, with like speed, with the boring stuff and stuff like that. But what about for you personally? Like, has there been a point for you where you've reached burnout, or you've pushed too hard and had to set boundaries, or you've kind of just sort of been an even keel?
Yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely human like everybody else. Couple of years ago, when I was kind of filling slightly more than one seat at Sked, was doing the CS role and some go-to-market stuff, as well as some pricing things, and it was hard work, and it seemed to be never ending because some of the pricing stuff there was no way to walk it back. There was no rollback. There was no undo. As soon as you made this change, it was going to impact customers immediately. There was no way to like, I forgot to put a decimal sign there, and we just billed everyone $10,000 instead of $1,000 or something. Enormous amounts of checking and double checking and triple checking and making sure that the things were repeatable because we needed to do it a few times to estimate and then do it before we checked, and then you kind of triple checking. I think by the end of that project, I was like, I need a holiday. I was probably awful to work with by the end of that one. People would have been over me. I've got to be honest. People would have absolutely been over me. And for me, I've pushed through that for way longer than I should have, like without a doubt. I think I'm probably better at realizing when it's time to take a break, even if it's just for a few extra days, a week. Try and booking your AL in advance so you have something to look forward to. And then, when you're on break, don't keep opening your phone and looking at Slack, man. Like, just delete it from your phone. Don't put your out of office on. Nothing's urgent. We sell social media software. We're not surgeons. We're not doctors. We're not doing heart. We're not doing open heart surgery. Like, this stuff is important, but we need to have the downtime. You need to have your break.
I love that. Especially, in this industry, social, it's very reactive and trend driven. It's like we need to know what's going on now to contribute to the conversation. So I think a lot of listeners here feel the pressure of just like always having to be on and having an opinion or, you know, like a stake in the fight or whatever. And it's like, nah, like boundaries definitely need to be put in place, hey? Because I think like even these days, like kids, they just grow up on phones. They grow up on all this stuff where I feel like we had the ability to switch off easier back then because it wasn't in our pocket or in our hand all day. You know, we could go touch grass and play outside and talk and things. So it definitely feels like one that you have to be really disciplined over now. And it's kind of like you have to experience it yourself, hey, to realize that I can't keep going like this. Like if I keep burning the candle at both ends, like how long would I be able to even do this for, you know?
I mean, if you're really pushing, you can do it for a while, but you pay it back with interest. It's not, I think for people especially who run their own agency and, or you know, the head of a small agency or solo, like if you're not working in it or on it, the business stops, for some people. And the hardest thing that I see is people to go from like themselves and maybe one or two others up to a level where they've got maybe a 3 or 4, and the person who started it as the owner can actually stop doing stuff day to day and they can do the growth stuff. And I know it's like, you got to work on the business, not in the business. But that leap for people, especially marketing and social media, is so impossible because it's so people heavy. It's so, it doesn't wait for you. You can't wait until next month to pick up some of this stuff. It's a treadmill. You can't get off the treadmill. In the case of these kind of small agencies, it's not sustainable for a lot of these people to work how hard they're working 12 months a year, day in, day out. And eventually, if they don't have a plan to try and get some to backfill some of those hours or take some time off, they will blow themselves up. And it's tough because maybe what they've built isn't necessarily, it's all them. And if you take them out of the business, it's not really worth anything as a business or a project. Like, sorry to say it to people because some people might not appreciate that, but if you're kind of a 1 or 2 man person operation, and you've done all the work for years and you're not in there anymore, it's only you that's generated the value. It's all sweat equity. There's a few people I could think of who I know who've done a really, really good job. I won't call them out by name, but there's 2 people in Melbourne who are a husband and wife. One of them's a creative, one of them's a writer. And I remember one of the first years that I spoke to them as a Sked customer, the second year, they were taking their first Christmas or summer off in 4 years because they'd just been grinding it through as their kind of boutique agency. And they took the 4 weeks off. They just put out of office on. They planned all this stuff in advance. They obviously scheduled it. But they managed to like build up enough process and, you know, told clients, hey, you're not going to get December reporting until the end of Jan. This is just what's going to happen. And they logged off. And I think that's the dream for a lot of people, to better build their thing up even just enough so that they can have a few weeks off over the Christmas break. They're not still doing it. You know, they're perhaps not spending, they're hopefully not responding to stuff in the inbox because that never stops. I think you're better off just publishing. If you do have to publish over that break, publish stuff is not going to get much interaction. Like, don't post something controversial where everyone's going to post their hot takes and replies and their thing. Just post stuff that's regular things. Maybe hop off the trend just for a few weeks so you can not get much engagement.
Well, business is hard, isn't it? Because it's like you see the value and for a lot of people, like the speed in replying and being, because you realize that could be a superpower, but then it's like it's taken away from you personally. So it's hard because what you see as strength sometimes can also be the slow burn that really takes it out of you. And I think like you were saying earlier, like scheduling that annual leave or something, I always feel much better. I'm happy to work way harder if I know that there's a bit of light at the end of the tunnel where it's like, this isn't going to be like this for forever. It's got an end date, you know, or a break or a reset where it's like, I don't know. I think it's so important. That's why I think like, yeah, like you were saying, it's like, it's important to like make sure that you're putting these things in place rather than just sort of jumping on the wheel and just sort of not knowing when it's going to stop.
I think people got better at it.
Yeah.
If I think of the people who I've spoken to recently who were either Sked customers or prospective customers for other things, I think there's kind of probably a sweet spot where someone goes, if I'm with me or somebody else, there is a sweet spot number of accounts that I can manage and do productively and produce good content for. And I've fired my bad clients who don't pay me enough money and who send me messages at all hours and don't want to follow the processes that make my life easier. Like, let those people go, please. Yeah, they probably joined you first, but they're now giving you a heart attack every time. So, yeah, it's time to go. And replace them with someone who pays 4 times as much, who follows the rules and can understand approvals and does all their stuff on time. And, those kind of things. Those people who have done it successfully and figured it out, they've stopped trying to grow. And they've stopped trying to incrementally add another client and another client and another client because they're not going to net any more cash at the end of the day. Like, you just need to add more resources. There is a sweet spot where you and 1 or 2 other people can do a really, really solid job and be a profitable kind of agency, boutique agency. But if you try and triple it, you are going to make probably less money or zero money. Because you just need more resources to make that happen. Finding that sweet spot is by far one of the most important things you can do. Look at it and go, hey, we doubled our client base. We've made less money. Maybe we can go back to the way we're doing it. Good old keep it simple, stupid, I think, applies very strongly to the kind of boutique agency space. And if you can break through into that next tier up, I don't know where the next tier is. Maybe it's a 30 head count. Awesome. Congratulations, you've got something that's really worth money and worthwhile, and you might get acquired. But the gap is really 5 people to 30 people, because in the middle is like, congratulations, you've got 15 people, you've got an HR person, you've got a payroll person, you've got probably a bookkeeper there a couple of days a week, you've got all this stuff, and then you now need extra systems and processes to handle the fact you've got 15 employees. And you have one person who's comes in and does something stupid, and then you need to have a whole process to deal with that, versus you could have your finger on the pulse of 3 people. And at 30, having all those things scale, it's fine. You're not trying to manage 15 people with all these extra resources. You can be profitable. You start to get that kind of efficiency gain. If people can bridge the gap, awesome. People get stuck in the middle is where it's like, that's the run around like a lunatic, just trying to put out fires of a 15-person business.
And yeah, that whole thing of like grow at all costs, and it's like playing other people's games just because of the perception that you see, like online it might be where there's the hustle culture, it's the grind, and it's the ones who like, yeah, I think like there's always a trade-off, isn't there, for working too hard and doing those things and maybe sacrificing family stuff, and then on the other side of the spectrum, not working hard enough. But it's like you were saying about finding that sweet spot. And I think it's all like what works for you, hey? And if you're privileged enough to maybe get investment or different help in certain areas to help you grow that, then that's cool too, but I think like you have to play your game, hey, not plug into someone else's version of what they think you should do.
Yeah, I think the grow at all cost thing is a massive trap, especially for like solopreneurs in Australia where market size isn't particularly massive. That is just a recipe for burnout. And I do think there is a sweet spot where you can kind of be a bit on the smaller side, be probably a bit more authentic. You've got less of the sales hat on every day because you've got a good client roster who understands you know what they do, and you can do their stuff profitably and do it really, really well. Trying to spin up new clients every week, great. You now have to figure out an onboarding process to make that stuff as smooth as possible, because that's now going to be an entire person's job, is trying to onboard and understand these guys. I think a lot of people just like to have a more streamlined, simpler business that just niches down onto a specific thing. Back to the old job, so the DJ warehouse, we made that hard decision. We did like for probably 2 seasons, I reckon. So 2 summers, we did all these massive events, which we had a really expensive sound system that we had borrowed through something or other that was a friend of a friend's. I'm not quite sure, but it was enormous. Probably did 2,000-3,000 people, no problems at all. Sounded sick, but It required a truck to transport because it didn't fit in the van. It required 2 or 3 people or 4 people to set up. Tons and tons of material inputs. The thing was really expensive too, so it wasn't like you could just leave it there. You had to have an operator on site. All this other stuff. So we're doing all these big event production things that had really high ticket value. Like, it's okay, come do this thing. It's 10, 20 grand. It's like, oh, awesome. We can do that. We've got to go buy a little bit of stuff to fund it. And you get to the end of the 2 seasons and you just look and go, we could have just made the same amount of net money by not doing any of that stuff and just stood around in our warehouse and handed out these tubs of lights and speakers to people throwing parties at their house and not had to run around like lunatics or buy a truck or deal with the insurance when someone crashed the truck into someone's parked car, all the other stuff. Like, real story. Wild. Just all of those things that add up in time and complexity. And we got to the end of the year. I was like, we're not doing that again. Just get rid of all this crap. Like, let's streamline, simplify. If it doesn't fit in a blue tub, we're not doing it. Niche down, pick your lane, at least pick your highway, and do the stuff that you're doing very, very well. Be efficient, be optimized, and be able to say no to things that don't fit in that bucket. Like, if a social media client is so far outside your level of expertise, and you're specializing in, e-com brands who do particular, healthy options, or you're looking at e-com brands within specific markets, and someone wants to come to you for like ready to drink coffee or something, like maybe that's not a good fit. The dollar sign's always like, oh, I'll do this one more thing. It's a hard decision. It's really hard to turn down that stuff. I think there's a level of skill in knowing what not to do, and it's always hard to turn down. Like, oh, we'll say no to this one, even though it's got a huge ticket price attached. Is it worth it?
Mate, there are so many lessons in this chat. I've absolutely loved it, and I feel like we're going to have to get you on later in the year to see how things are tracking with all the good stuff that we're doing here at Sked. But Rich, mate, it's been an honor, a pleasure to pick your brain, mate. Bloody love it. We'll chuck your LinkedIn profile in the description of that so people can have a good stalk of all the good work that you're doing. But mate, bloody loved it. Thanks.
Racing. Always a pleasure, mate. Look forward to chatting. Talk soon.